Hello everyone, I'm here with our new friend Bartholomew, ready to share with you our next Saturday story. Today's story is connected to last week's story, so if you haven't seen that video, you'll need to watch that one first. Can you remember what the story was? It was the story of the Ascension, the story of how Jesus left this earth and returned to heaven. That sounds like a sad goodbye, that Jesus' story was ending. But if you remember, I said that actually it wasn't an ending, but a beginning. And it was a beginning, not an ending, because Jesus had told his friends, his disciples, to carry on his work, and that soon the Holy Spirit would come and be their helper. But first they had to wait and pray, wait and pray, wait and pray, until finally came the day of Pentecost. Well, tomorrow is the day when we celebrate the Pentecost story, so I'm going to tell the story to you now. So let's get ready to hear the story. First, let's get seated comfortably. Then, let's open our ears. And then we need to open our hearts, ready to receive the story. Are you ready? Then we'll begin. So our story begins 10 days after the Ascension story, when Jesus had told his friends that they would continue his work and that the Holy Spirit would come to help them. The disciples were excited as they gathered together regularly to pray. What do you think will happen? Matthias asked. He was a new member of the Special 12 and was particularly excited. Well, definitely something will, definitely, said Thomas. He'd been a bit doubtful when Jesus had returned from death. And since he'd been proven wrong about that, he was very keen to let everybody know that he was a doubter no longer. It might mean big changes to our life, just like when we first met Jesus, said Matthew. He'd used to collect money for the mean Romans and a little bit for himself before he'd decided to follow Jesus. Now come on everyone, said Peter. We've been wondering and scratching our heads for 10 days now. Let's just do as the Master said. Let's just carry on with our praying. And so they did. But not long after they started praying on this particular occasion, there came a sound. It sounded like a very strong wind, and it filled the whole house where they were staying. Then there was fire, but not everywhere. It was more like tongues of fire, and it began to rest on each one of them. It was frightening at first, but then it felt familiar, energizing, and insistent all at the same time. They all knew this was the moment. This was the moment Jesus had sent the Holy Spirit. Suddenly, one of them began to say something, then another, and another, and another, until all of them were speaking. It was then they realized there was something amazing about their speaking. Each one of them was speaking in a different language. All this noise gathered a large crowd outside where they were. It was a busy day in Jerusalem, and there were visitors from lots of different countries. As the crowd gathered, attracted by the noise, they were certain they could hear their own languages being spoken, and they were absolutely amazed. Then, before he knew what he was doing, Peter was speaking to this crowd. He told them what was going on, and he told them all about Jesus. He was doing it. He was carrying on Jesus' work, just like Jesus said they would. The Spirit had come, and now they could continue the work. The ending had become the beginning. It was a good day's work too. Lots of the crowd decided to become disciples, to become Jesus' friend and continue the work with them. But this was just the beginning. People have continued Jesus' work, helped by the Holy Spirit, for centuries and centuries, and it continues to this present day. That was another good story, wasn't it? The story of Pentecost. I wonder what your favourite part was. Perhaps talk amongst yourselves for a moment about your favourite part. My favourite part was where Jesus' friends got new abilities, got to speak those new languages. I think it would be good to hear their stories, hear what they did to continue Jesus' work. So, over the next few weeks, we're going to hear the stories of what these first disciples did after Pentecost. People like Matthew and Thomas and so on. But me and Bartholomew need your help. When we tell these stories, we like to use pictures. And we think it would be wonderful if one of our children could draw St. Peter ready for the story next week. We don't really know what he looked like, but there are lots of other pictures you could use for inspiration, which can be found in other storybooks and online. Once you have drawn the picture, you could ask your mum, dad, guardian to send me the picture. They could take a picture of your picture with a phone, or even better, they could scan it into the computer. They can then email it to me using my email address, which can be found on the Christchurch website. However, I need to have a picture by Friday morning. And don't worry if I end up with lots of pictures and lots of different children. I'm sure we can use them somehow in the video. So, that's the end of our time together. I hope you'll be able to join me and Bartholomew next week as we continue with St. Peter's story. Until next time, peace be with you.